My name is Vex-8, and I thought I knew war. After 7 cycles serving as a tactical observer for the Galactic Defense Coalition, I had witnessed 23 different species tear each other apart. The methodical precision of the Krellin hive minds, the ritualistic combat of the proud Thaxian warriors, the calculated strikes of the silicon-based Nexari. War, in all its forms, followed patterns. Predictable, logical, brutal, yes, but always within the bounds of what any rational military mind could comprehend. Then I met the humans, and everything I thought I understood about conflict went straight out the nearest airlock. The assignment seemed routine when Admiral Corvin handed me the datapad in his pristine command chamber aboard the flagship Stellar Prominence. The humans had just joined the coalition after their first contact protocols were completed, barely 6 months prior. A young species, technologically primitive by our standards, but eager to prove themselves worthy of membership. The Council had decided to give them their first real combat assignment, a simple patrol mission in the Outer Rim, where raider activity had been increasing. "Keep an eye on them, Vex," Corvin had said, his 3 eyes blinking in that way that suggested mild amusement. "Make sure they don't accidentally shoot themselves in the foot. Or worse, shoot us." I had laughed at that. How dangerous could a species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago possibly be? The human vessel, Defiant Spirit, was underwhelming, to put it mildly. A cramped, angular thing that looked like someone had welded together spare parts from a dozen different ships and called it good enough. The corridors were narrow, the lighting harsh and white, and everything smelled faintly of recycled air and something the humans called coffee. Their technology was a bizarre mix of advanced and primitive. Quantum computers running next to actual physical switches. Energy weapons powered by what appeared to be controlled fusion reactors held together with something they cheerfully referred to as duct tape. Captain Maya Torres was their commanding officer, a woman of average height with dark hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail, and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She greeted me in their cramped briefing room with a handshake that nearly crushed my manipulator appendage. "Welcome aboard, Observer Vex. Hope you're ready for an interesting ride." Her tone was friendly enough, but there was something in those brown eyes that made my secondary nervous system tingle. A predatory alertness that I had only seen in apex hunters from death worlds, which, I reminded myself, was exactly what Earth was classified as. The crew was a mixed bag of personalities. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, the tactical officer, was a tall, lanky human who seemed to find humor in everything, even when discussing weapons systems. Chief Engineer Rosa Valdez spoke with rapid-fire enthusiasm about their jury-rigged modifications that apparently made their ship faster than it had any right to be. Medical Officer Dr. Sam Park was quiet and methodical, but I caught him watching me with the same clinical interest I usually reserved for my own subjects. For the first week of our patrol, everything proceeded exactly as expected. The humans followed standard coalition protocols, responded to communications with proper military courtesy, and generally behaved like any other new species trying to make a good impression. Their ship performed adequately, their crew was competent if unorthodox, and I began to compose my report in my head. Species shows promise, but requires extensive training in proper military doctrine. How spectacularly wrong I was about to be. The trouble started on day 8, when our long-range sensors detected a convoy of civilian transports under attack by raider vessels in the Kepler 442 system. 3 raider cruisers, heavily armed and notorious for their take-no-prisoners policy, We're in the process of systematically destroying a group of refugee ships carrying families fleeing from a recent mining colony collapse. Standard coalition protocol was clear. A single patrol vessel should call for backup and monitor the situation until reinforcements arrived. The raiders were simply too numerous and well-armed for one ship to handle alone. Captain Torres received the same tactical briefing I did. She stared at the holographic display showing the overwhelming enemy force, the dying civilian ships, and our own single outgunned vessel. Then she did something that still makes my translator circuits struggle to process properly. She smiled. Not a pleasant, reassuring smile. Not the grim smile of a soldier accepting a difficult duty. This was something else entirely. Something that made the temperature in the briefing room seem to drop several degrees. "Morrison, what's our weapons status?" "All systems green, Captain. We've got the new plasma torpedoes loaded, and Rosa's been making some modifications to the targeting systems." "Outstanding. Valdez, how fast can you get us there?" "If I push the engines past Redline and pray to whatever God watches over engineers with questionable judgment, 18 minutes. "Do it." I felt compelled to interject at this point. "Captain Torres, perhaps we should contact command and request backup. The tactical situation is—" She turned those predator eyes on me, and I actually took a step backward. "Observer Vex, how long would it take for backup to arrive?" "Approximately 47 minutes, assuming the nearest patrol responds immediately." "And how many civilian ships will be left alive in 47 minutes?" I checked the tactical display again. The raiders were methodically working their way through the convoy, destroying ships with ruthless efficiency. Based on current casualty rates, none. Then, backup is 47 minutes too. Late, isn't it? The logic was unassailable, but it was also completely insane. This was exactly the kind of reckless behavior that the Coalition spent considerable time training out of new species. The greater good sometimes required difficult decisions. Acceptable losses were a fact of military life. I was about to explain this when Captain Torres activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We've got civilians under attack, and we're the only help they're going to get. I won't lie to you, the odds aren't great. 3 to 1, and they've got heavier guns than we do. If anyone wants to object, now would be the time." The response was immediate and unanimous. Every voice that came through the comm system was eager, determined, and absolutely ready for a fight that any rational military analyst would call suicide. "Outstanding," Torres said, that terrifying smile growing wider. "Morrison, I want you to target their engines first. We're not here to play fair. We're here to win. Valdez, once we drop out of hyperspace, I want everything the engines have got. Park, prepare for casualties. And everyone remember, those are families out there, people with children, people who deserve to go home tonight." The next few minutes passed in a blur of preparation that was unlike anything I had observed in other species. There was no hesitation, no debate about the wisdom of their course of action. Every crew member moved with purpose and deadly efficiency. They checked weapons systems with the casual familiarity of people who genuinely understood violence. They reviewed tactical scenarios with the kind of creative thinking that suggested they had spent considerable time figuring out how to kill things more effectively. When we dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, the scene was even worse than our sensors had indicated. 2 civilian transports were already debris fields. A third was burning, its hull breached in multiple places, life pods streaming away like seeds from a dying flower. The raider cruisers were moving in formation, their gun ports glowing with the distinctive blue-white energy of charged plasma cannons. 3 Raider cruisers, configuration Delta 7. They've got us outgunned about 4-1, Morrison reported with what I can only describe as professional excitement. Their shields are up, but they're focused on the civilians. I don't think they've spotted us yet. Perfect, Torres said. Let's introduce ourselves properly. Target the lead cruiser's engine section. Full spread. Plasma torpedoes. Captain, I tried once more. Perhaps we should attempt communication first. Standard engagement protocols require… Observer Vex, she interrupted, still watching the tactical display. How many people do you estimate are on those civilian ships? I ran a quick calculation. Approximately 8,000, based on standard transport capacity. 8,000 people, families, kids. She turned to look at me, and I finally understood what I was seeing in her eyes. It wasn't just predatory alertness, it was fury. Cold, controlled, absolutely terrifying fury. Standard engagement protocols can kiss my rear end. The humans launched their opening salvo with precision that would have been impressive if it hadn't been completely insane. 6 plasma torpedoes streaked toward the lead Raider cruiser, striking their engine section in a coordinated pattern that I recognized from advanced tactical manuals. The explosions bloomed across the enemy ship's stern, and their shields flared brilliant white before failing completely. The Raiders responded exactly as I expected. They broke formation, turning their superior firepower toward this impudent single ship that dared to attack them. Their return fire was devastating, multiple plasma bursts that should have reduced the defiant spirit to component atoms. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship danced. There's no other word for it. Captain Torres had somehow turned a lumbering patrol vessel into something that moved like a living thing, spinning and diving through space in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Enemy fire passed harmlessly through space, where they had been milliseconds before. "How are you doing that?" I asked, watching the tactical display with the fascination of someone witnessing a miracle. "Rosa souped up our maneuvering thrusters," Torres replied casually, as if performing impossible evasive maneuvers was the most natural thing in the world. "Turns out, if you don't mind voiding your warranty and occasionally risking catastrophic engine failure, you can make these ships move in ways the designers never intended." The lead Raider cruiser, now with crippled engines, was struggling to bring its weapons to bear on the impossible moving target. The other 2 Raiders were trying to bracket the human ship with overlapping fields of fire, a standard tactic that should have worked perfectly. "Morrison, status on our second target?" "Cruiser 2 is moving to flank us, trying to get a clean shot. Cruiser 3 is hanging back, probably calling for reinforcements." "Can't have that. Target Cruiser 3's communications array. Let's make sure this stays a private party." More torpedoes streaked across space, and I watched in amazement as they struck the Raider ship's communications section with surgical precision. These humans weren't just fighting, they were fighting smart. Every shot had a purpose, every maneuver was calculated for maximum effect. But the Raiders weren't helpless. Their return fire was getting closer, and even the most incredible evasive flying couldn't last forever against overwhelming firepower. A plasma burst clipped the human ship's port side, and the lights flickered throughout the bridge. "Hull breach on Deck 3, came a voice over the comm. "Sealing bulkheads now." "Casualties?" Torres asked. 2. Injured? No fatalities. Engineering teams are already on it." The captain nodded once, then turned back to her tactical display with that same terrifying calm. "Morrison, we need to end this quickly. What do you have for me?" The tactical officer's grin was absolutely predatory. "Well, Captain, Rosa and I have been working on something special. Remember those modifications to the targeting computers? The ones that definitely violate several coalition safety regulations? Those would be the ones. Turns out, if you link the targeting system directly to the plasma torpedo guidance computers and ignore all those pesky safety protocols, you can do some very interesting things with weapon trajectories." I felt my biological threat detection system start screaming warnings. What kind of interesting things? Morrison's fingers flew over his console, and the tactical display lit up with projected firing solutions that looked more like abstract art than military tactics. Instead of firing in straight lines, we can make the torpedoes fly in curves, loops, even figure eights if we want to show off. Makes it very hard for enemy point defense systems to track them. "How hard?" Torres asked. "Well, Captain, I'd say impossible, but that seems like bragging." "Morrison?" "Yes, Captain?" "Brag away." What happened next was the most beautiful and terrifying display of applied violence I had ever witnessed. The human ship fired a spread of 6 plasma torpedoes that immediately began moving in impossible curved trajectories, weaving through space like living things. The radar point defense systems, designed to intercept weapons moving in predictable ballistic paths, couldn't track the erratically moving projectiles. All 6 torpedoes found their targets. The first radar cruiser, already crippled, took 3 direct hits to its reactor section and simply ceased to exist in a brilliant flash of released energy. The second cruiser tried to maneuver away from the incoming torpedoes, but only succeeded in presenting a better target profile for the weapons that curved around to strike its weapon arrays. With its primary armament destroyed, it was effectively out of the fight. The third radar cruiser, seeing the tide of battle turn so dramatically, attempted to flee. This proved to be a mistake. "Oh, no, you don't," Torres said, and for the first time since the battle began, there was genuine emotion in her voice. Pure, unadulterated rage. "Morrison, can you stop them?" "I can do better than that, Captain. I can make them wish they'd never heard of the human race." The final torpedo salvo was a masterpiece of tactical innovation and sheer vindictive creativity. Instead of targeting the fleeing ship's engines or weapons, the projectiles struck the cruiser's life support and gravity generation systems. The ship didn't explode, it didn't break apart dramatically. It simply went dark and began tumbling slowly through space, its crew trapped inside a powerless hull, completely at the mercy of whoever wanted to board them. "Outstanding shooting, Morrison. Valdez, take us to the civilian ships. Let's see who we can help." As the Defiant Spirit moved toward the surviving refugee transports, I found myself staring at the tactical display in complete shock. In less than 15 minutes, 3 humans in an obsolete patrol ship had destroyed 2 advanced raider cruisers and captured a third, while sustaining minimal damage and 0 fatalities. This wasn't just military competence. This was something far more dangerous. This was what happened when a species that had evolved as persistence predators on a death world decided that someone else's children were in danger. And I was beginning to realize that everything the galactic community thought it knew about warfare was about to change forever. The rescue operation that followed taught me more about human nature than 7 cycles of military observation had prepared me for. As we approached the damaged civilian transports, I expected standard coalition emergency protocols, establish communications, assess damage, coordinate evacuation procedures. Efficient, methodical, by the book. Instead, I watched Captain Torres transform from a tactical predator into something even more surprising. A caretaker. "Park, I want medical teams standing by." Valdez, divert power from weapons to life support systems. We're going to be taking on refugees. Morrison, coordinate with their navigation computers. I want to know which ships can still make hyperspace jumps on their own. The efficiency was breathtaking. Within minutes, human crew members were suited up and moving through space to assist with emergency repairs. Dr. Park had set up triage stations throughout their ship, preparing for casualties. Chief Valdez was somehow managing to boost life support capacity while maintaining engine readiness, just in case more raiders showed up. But it was the conversations I overheard on the communication channels that really shook me. Transport vessel Safe Harbor. This is Lieutenant Morrison aboard the Defiant Spirit. We've got hot coffee, real food, and clean bunks ready for your people. How many souls are we talking about? Defiant Spirit. This is Captain Liu of the Safe Harbor. We have 437 refugees, including 86 children. Our life support is failing, and we've got injured. Copy that, Captain Liu. We're coming alongside now. Don't worry about the paperwork or protocols. We'll sort that out later. Right now, let's just get your people safe. I had observed dozens of species conducting rescue operations. There were always forms to fill out, proper channels to follow, regulations about contamination protocols, and resource allocation. The humans simply helped. No bureaucracy, no hesitation, no concern for regulations that might slow down the process of saving lives. The first group of refugees to board the human ship were a family of Altarian traders, 2 adults and 3 small children, all looking traumatized and exhausted. I watched Captain Torres personally greet them at the airlock, kneeling down to speak with the children at their eye level. "Hey there, little ones. I'm Maya. Are you hungry? We've got some really good soup in our mess hall, and I think our cook made cookies earlier." The youngest child, barely old enough to walk, reached out tentatively to touch the strange alien who was speaking so gently. Torres smiled and allowed the small being to examine her hand, speaking in soft, reassuring tones. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you while you're on my ship." I realized I was witnessing something that my analytical training had never accounted for. This wasn't just military efficiency or tactical superiority. This was compassion as a driving force, and it was more powerful than any weapon system I had ever observed. Over the next several hours, as we continued rescue operations, I began to understand why humans had survived on their death world long enough to develop space travel. They didn't just fight to win, they fought to protect. And when they were protecting others, especially the young and vulnerable, they became capable of things that defied rational explanation. "Observer Vex," Dr. Park called to me from the medical bay, where he was treating injured refugees. "Could you assist me for a moment? I need someone with multiple manipulator appendages to help stabilize this patient." I joined him at a medical bed, where a badly injured Kepler mining engineer was struggling with internal bleeding. Park's hands moved with surgical precision, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. "The tissue damage is extensive," I observed. "Standard coalition medical protocol would be to stabilize for transport to a proper medical facility." "Standard protocol isn't going to save him," Park replied grimly. "He needs surgery now, not later." "But doctor, this is a patrol ship, not a hospital vessel. You don't have the proper equipment for major surgery." Park looked up at me with the expression I was beginning to recognize as distinctly human, the look of someone who had decided that the impossible was merely difficult. "Valdez, can you hear me from engineering?" "Loud and clear, Doc. What do you need?" "Remember that fabrication unit you've been tinkering with? The one that's definitely not supposed to manufacture medical devices, without proper certification. The one that absolutely doesn't exist and I've never heard of? That fabrication unit? That's the one. I need surgical tools, custom-made, and I need them in 20 minutes. Doc, you know that making uncertified medical equipment violates about 17 different coalition regulations, right? Rosa, is this patient going to live long enough to file a complaint about regulation violations? There was a pause. I'll have your tools in 15 minutes. What followed was the most improvised, regulation-violating, technically illegal medical procedure I had ever witnessed. Park performed surgery using tools that had been manufactured in an engineering bay, guided by medical scanners that Valdez had somehow jury-rigged to provide real-time imaging, assisted by crew members who had no formal medical training but were willing to learn on the spot. It should have been a disaster. Any rational analysis would have predicted catastrophic failure and probable patient death. Instead, 3 hours later, the Kepler engineer was stable, conscious, and asking for something called pizza because he had heard the humans had good food. "How did you do that?" I asked Park as we cleaned up the medical bay. "You had inadequate equipment, improper facilities, and no surgical team. By all logical analysis, that operation should have failed." Park shrugged. A gesture I was learning meant humans don't care about your logical analysis. When someone's dying, you don't let them die just because you don't have perfect conditions. You improvise, you adapt, you find a way to make it work. That's what humans do. But what if you had failed? What if the patient had died because of your unconventional methods? He looked at me with those same predator eyes I had seen in Captain Torres. Then, at least I would have tried everything possible instead of giving up because the rulebook said it couldn't be done. By the time coalition reinforcements arrived 12 hours later, the defiant spirit had rescued over 800 refugees, performed 17 emergency medical procedures, and somehow managed to repair 2 of the damaged transport ships, enough to make them spaceworthy again. Admiral Corvin's reaction to my initial report was educational. "They did what?" His 3 eyes blinked rapidly, a sure sign of agitation. "Vex, please tell me you're exaggerating. A single patrol ship cannot possibly have engaged 3 raider cruisers successfully." "Admiral, I observed the entire engagement personally. The humans not only defeated the raiders, they captured one of their ships intact. That's militarily impossible. Our best tactical simulations show that a single coalition patrol vessel has less than a 12% probability of survival against 3 raider cruisers." "Sir, I don't think the humans consulted the tactical simulations before engaging the enemy." Corvin was quiet for a long moment, studying the battle recordings I had provided. "These weapon trajectories, how did they make plasma torpedoes curve in flight?" "They modified their targeting computers by bypassing safety protocols and directly linking guidance systems. According to Chief Valdez, the modifications had a 37% chance of causing catastrophic system failure." "And they used these untested modifications in combat?" "Yes, sir." When I questioned the wisdom of this approach, Captain Torres informed me that acceptable risk calculations change significantly when children are in danger. The Admiral's expression grew thoughtful. "What's your assessment of their combat effectiveness?" I had been dreading this question because the answer challenged everything I thought I understood about warfare. "Sir, in terms of raw tactical capability, they're impressive but not unprecedented. Their technology is crude but effective, their training is adequate, and their strategic thinking is sound. But Admiral, they don't fight like any other species we've encountered. They don't calculate acceptable losses or strategic withdrawal scenarios. When they decide to protect something, They commit completely, and they become capable of tactical innovations that seem impossible until you watch them succeed. Are you saying they're superior warriors to established coalition species? I considered this carefully. No, sir. I'm saying they're different. The Krellans fight with hive mind precision. The Thaxians fight for honor. The Nexari fight with calculated efficiency. Humans fight like they take it personally. 3 days later, I received new orders. The Coalition Council had decided that human military capabilities required further study. I was to remain aboard the Defiant Spirit for an extended observation period. Captain Torres greeted the news with that same predatory smile I was learning to find both reassuring and terrifying. Outstanding, Observer Vex. Stick around, you haven't seen anything yet. She was right, of course. Over the following months, I watched humans revolutionize small unit tactics, improvise solutions to problems that had stumped military engineers for decades, and consistently achieve mission success rates that statistical analysis insisted were impossible. But more importantly, I learned why they were so effective. Other species fought for territory, resources, ideology, or honor. Humans fought for each other. When one of their own was threatened, they became capable of tactical brilliance that bordered on miraculous. When civilians needed protection, they would attempt operations that any rational military mind would classify as suicide. The most disturbing realization came during our 7th joint operation, when we encountered a raider slave ship carrying captured colonists. Captain Torres received the same tactical briefing I did. Overwhelming enemy force, minimal chance of success, high probability of casualties. Her response was immediate and uncompromising. We're going in. No debate, no request for reinforcements, no consideration of acceptable losses. Just absolute certainty that they would find a way to save those people regardless of the odds. As I watched the human crew prepare for another impossible mission, I finally understood what I was really observing. This wasn't just military capability or tactical innovation. This was what happened when a species evolved not just to survive, but to ensure that others could survive as well. The galaxy had produced many great warrior races, species that could fight with legendary skill, tactical genius, and unwavering courage. But humanity was something new, a species that had weaponized compassion. And as I prepared my final report for the Coalition Council, I realized that everything we thought we knew about the future of galactic warfare had just become obsolete. The humans weren't just joining the galactic community as another military ally. They were about to redefine what it meant to fight for something worth protecting. War was familiar to me. I had observed it, analyzed it, understood its patterns and predictabilities. But human fury in defense of the innocent? That was something entirely new, and it was going to change everything. My final recommendation to the Coalition Council was simple. Give the humans whatever they need. Point them toward our enemies and get out of their way. Because when humans decide that something is worth protecting, the universe itself becomes a dangerous place for anyone who threatens it. And frankly, I couldn't think of anyone I'd rather have watching my back when the shooting started.